Meeting to order. Thank you everyone for showing up tonight. Let's say the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's start with the introduction. We do have a new member here tonight. I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Emily Garrett. I am the recording secretary of the township.
Matt Miller, trustee.
Hoard, chair.
Patricia Wells, vice chair.
Sherri VanWyck, secretary.
Amy Allen, zoning administrator.
Right. We had a nice meeting tonight.
A motion to approve August 11th agenda.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Favor? We have a motion to approve the minutes of June 9.
Oh, I skipped over that, that's my bad. I drew crosses. Now, a motion to approve the minutes from June 9th.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, we'll start out with the first call to the public. If anyone has any comments, feel free to let us know what you're thinking. No, not yet. Well, you'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to have some public comment. Reading of communications, I have one from Putnam Township, and it is, I'll read it in accordance with the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act. Township of Putnam is preparing an update to the existing master plan and requests your cooperation or comments on the plan. The master plan update is ready for your review and can be viewed at Putnam Township website. Excuse me. And I have a copy of this for you guys if you want to get in there and take a look at their master plan. We have an opportunity to comment on what their master plan is. So I will get this to all of you after we give you a minute. I'll give you a copy of it. It's got the website on it. Take a peek and see what Putnam's about too. Okay, we're going to get to the fun stuff. New business. We have with us Mark Eidelson, our township planner, and he is here to present a draft amendments to our ordinance regarding data centers. I'd like to preempt this so that you understand that this is our first opportunity in a public setting to go over that as the commission. We've got a draft in our hands. Mark's going to explain the amendments that were on there, and then we're going to ask questions. At the end of the meeting, if you have some questions regarding the data center, this ordinance, that's the time for the public comment. We do not, just so no one has any misconfusion, we do not have, to my knowledge, any applications or intent to develop anything like that right now. This is purely getting ahead of this game and trying to have some protection for the township in the event that one of those developments does come this way. So, that being said, I'd like to hand this over to Mark.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be back in Iosco. I'd like to offer some general comments before looking at the amendments specifically. In regard to data centers, as with any land use, most any land use, communities have basically two options. They can either prohibit the use in question, or they can permit the use in question with regulation. I believe all of you know that the Zoning Enabling Act prohibits the prohibition of what would otherwise be a lawful land use, unless it can be shown that there's a demonstrated need and a compatible location. And it's frequently hard to do. And so it is a risky approach. For those communities who choose to allow data centers and regulate them, there's a continuum of the scope of the regulations. So you may have a municipality whose amendments or data center regulations fill a half a page of text. And then there are others that go further than that. The amendments that I prepared would, from my experience, would be considered pretty comprehensive. Irrespective of whether there are things in there that you folks may have concerns about or questions about or you don't like. While when you go through my June 29th amendments, there are 3 numbered amendments. It's really just 2 of them that are particularly substantive. Table 3.3 is proposed to be amended to expressly authorize data centers in your commercial and industrial districts by special land use approval. The other substantive amendment establishes a new section in the zoning ordinance that addresses, that presents regulations specific to data centers, including standards that have to be met, additional information that must be included as part of an application, and related operational standards. That is a quick overview. Just having said that, are any questions about what I just said? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the more exciting stuff.
I don't.
No, I'll let you finish first.
Okay. All right, I am turning to the June 29th correspondence, and I'm going right past the first 1.5 pages and going to amendment number 1, which is on page 2. That is the least substantive amendment of the 3. It provides for the insertion in Article 21, which addresses definitions. It provides for the insertion of the phrase data center, and normally there would be a definition, but in this case, as we have done in other instances in the ordinance, this amendment is directing the reader to section 1325, which you will see is the new, possibly a new section to the ordinance specific to data centers. And that section, which we'll get to shortly, includes definitions for the respective terms. Amendment number 2, which I said earlier, applies to Table 3-3. Table 3-3 addresses permitted uses in the commercial and industrial districts. And the amendment provides for the table as a subheading titled Uses of a Primarily Commercial Character. The amendments provide for, and the last entry in that portion of the table is 33. The amendment number 2 provides for the insertion of a new line, number 34, that expressly authorizes data centers as a special use in both of those districts. Currently, the township has very little commercial or industrial zone land. And in terms of commercial, other than Mug and Bops and Dollar General, though I believe those are the most visible storefront commercial uses. The master plan provides for commercial industrial development in 2 areas of the township. The Parker's Corner commercial area, that's how the master plan refers to it. It extends about 1/2 mile along Iosco Road, approximately from Elliot to Bradley, just right behind us. Right behind us. And that is called out as a commercial area. The second area is called out as the Masson Rd Commercial Industrial Area, which is intended to provide opportunities for a combination of both, basically a mixed-use corridor of commercial and industrial. So I bring that to your attention so that you you recognize that currently based on these amendments, there are comparatively limited opportunities for data centers. Just because of where the master plan is directing it and what the policies are relative to the master plan. I said earlier, the amendments are fairly comprehensive. They're not encouraging data centers. The amendments are not discouraging them either. But currently, unless the master plan is revised to say something else, if the amendments were adopted today, the future location of a data center would be limited to those 2 locations, those 2, Iosco Road and Masson Road, where I described, yes.
So is there even enough, by the time you get your setbacks in those 2 areas, is it even enough to do one?
They come in many shapes and sizes.
I mean, it'd be a pretty little one.
Well, the policies presented in the master plan in both of these commercial/industrial areas make reference to the planned area along these segments, extending 500 feet to the south and 500 feet to the north of those respective roads. So 500 feet is, if we're talking square acres, approximately 200 by 200, not exactly. Certainly along Masson Road, that planned corridor is about 2/3 to 3/4 miles long. So if you look at the amount of acreage that encompasses, it's a lot of acreage. Will it meet, my need for a data center as a developer. Maybe not. It might meet someone else's. If you folks have reasonable concerns that these amendments may limit it to too much, we can make it more flexible. Yes?
One concern I do have is just, doing some looking and reading around is a lot of these closed loop systems, they tend to need scrubbing, so it's not something that
I'm sorry.
the closed loop systems for the cooling, they need scrubbing every couple of years. So they'll go through, they'll empty out that water. That water also contains a lot of different chemicals and additives for cooling agents. There's, from some findings, there's a lot of restrictions or regulations on where that water is disposed of. And they can empty it out right on the site, into the sewer drains.
Mhm.
And to me, that's non-negotiable. I have a water disposal plan in place or something in that ordinance to limit them from being able to dump whatever water wherever when things get cleaned out and recirculated.
Mhm.
So that was kind of something that
Okay.
I was curious of.
We can certainly add that. I believe that is regulated strictly by the state. But whether the particular applicant or whether the particular data center complies.
I don't want to get into what they call like a Ford Pinto theory, where it's cheaper to pay the lawsuit than it is to fix the problem. I don't want that to be something to be
Yeah,
to follow.
I understand. I understand. If there's general support to include an addition into the amendments to address that issue directly, then I will do that. And happy to do it.
Discussion.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want to discuss it now, if the issues are raised, or whether you just want to raise issues here and then discuss it after we go through it all. I'll look to you folks for how
Well, I for one, I do think we should talk about all this stuff, and you got a good point there. I was hoping to get through Mark's presentation on it and then have some questions for you. I have some things I'd like to add to it. I have a few
Okay.
comments for you.
So-
Yeah.
So then I'll just kind of summarize through these and then throw it back to you folks.
Yep, and then if we have agreement, we would like some of these amendments changed, and
Yep.
talk about all these things.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so that was Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. Amendment 3, and I apologize for the confusion for the title of Amendment 3, because there's an improper reference to a section number. It should be 1325. Amendment number 3 is the guts, and it presents several pages of provisions addressing all sorts of aspects of a data center. Subsection A addresses basic definitions. Subsection B puts forth various site development standards addressing parking spaces. I won't go through it all right now, but parking spaces, building sizes, setbacks, screening. Subsection C puts forth another set of provisions that are described as special performance standards and requirements for data centers that address the closed loop system, which I'm sure we'll get back to. Noise levels, required noise study, provisions addressing generators and the use of generators and how frequently. Architectural requirements generally intended to make a large data center not look so large. And the last section under C addresses project duration, decommissioning, and reclamation, which we're all familiar, I believe all familiar with those concepts based on our extensive adventures in solar energy, that sort of stuff. The last section is subsection D. Excuse me. The zoning ordinance currently presents a couple pages of requirements for someone submitting an application. And sort of a default, extensive but default set of submittal requirements. We have had a number of uses. Iosco Township has contemplated and has made amendments to accommodate a number of uses, some of which are more unique than others, and those sort of performance standards were added in those sections of the ordinance as well, such as solar, wind, sure there are others. So subsection D does the same thing. It tells the applicant you have to meet the site plan review submittal requirements of Article 14, but in addition, you also have to meet these other application requirements, which pertains to, by example, requiring a noise study, requiring a lighting plan, water conservation plan, and related information. And that is the extent of the ordinance. In general. Hang on.
Yeah, I'd like to just start out, I'll have a few questions for you. The meat of this thing is the section C, the special performance standards. And it's where it talks about mitigating the nuisances from one of these developments. It has all of the precautions it's trying to address the nuisances that we have. I noticed first with the noise study, number 3, going down there, would it be possible to, I think that study should be done by a third party. If we were to have that instead of the data centers hiring their own company to come in and do that study, it should be third party. We should be able to approve the testing agency and they should pay for it. If it could be clear somewhere in this ordinance. That way we don't have a conflict of interest when we do the noise study. And I think that out of any of these nuisances, that's a biggie on these things. The other comment I have is site lighting, Mark, and I know that we have areas in the ordinance that address it, and I thought maybe that's why we didn't address that much in these facilities, but for me, part of the glory of living out here is the dark skies, and these facilities can light up Mars down here if we let them. It's a concern of mine. I don't know what we can do about it. I know that we keep the lighting at the property line. so many candle powers at the property lines, we can do a lighting study, illumination study. How do you keep the light from ruining our dark skies out here?
Well, in part, you require that they be 100% cut off so that the light fixture is covered so that other than maybe from reflecting from the ground, any light directly emitted can only go down.
I think it should be addressed a little bit in this ordinance, but if you feel that we have enough coverage for the lighting in the other parts of our ordinance, like,
Well,
we want to be redundant.
to tell you the truth, section 11.8 of the ordinance addresses exterior lighting. It's very heavy on minimizing dark sky pollution. But I will go through it again and just make sure the issues that you're raising and that others may share address them.
Okay, yeah, just maybe.
I will.
Yeah.
I feel like we had that problem with Mug & Box when they first opened. They had extensive lighting. And we said something to them, and he put like cans or something so it was more direct lighting from Mug & Box.
Yeah,
There's ways they can fix that
Oh.
and change it.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly today, you know, maybe years ago, maybe it was different, but the technology, I mean, yes. We're not, you folks are not asking for anything that one would think it's unreasonable. In my opinion.
Do we feel that 9 p.m. is pretty late for that to be running at a noise decibel of 65? If I remember right, was the solar projects, was that like a 55 decibel? Or
The-
I think it's
45?
That's what I
Well, 40,
made. I made it my.
but it was the state maximum of 55 for the solar, was it? Or, you know what I'm talking about? For the
Yeah.
noise? So this one looks like it's got, what's a little bit more noise, 65 decibels, and looks like going later to 9 p.m. And at 9 p.m., we're probably a little bit too late. I would assume 7 to 5. People are getting home evenings, sitting on the back porch.
Yeah, and I was wanted to question, can we make the nighttime one down from 55 to 45?
That was another thing I was going to say, or was drop that down and be more reasonable. The decibels for daytime or nighttime operations and daytime operations.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yes, actually, the ones we did for solar and wind, I think were 35 and 45, depending upon the time of day. It's very common in commercial and industrial districts to allow a greater amount of noise just because it's a commercial industrial district. However, having just said that, I certainly understand if you'd rather lower it, because in your case, where commercial development is planned, like 98% of the township is either agricultural or residential. So we're not, in this township, we're not dealing with large industrial areas where the data center is, the noise it makes is just going to be eaten up by all the other noise that's going on. So I think it's a legitimate point. And I have no concerns with lowering those numbers.
And for now, that's what my concerns on this ordinance are. Is there anyone who have any comments from our?
I just wondered if you could clarify something. On page 5, section 5C, it says a data center building exceeding 150 feet in length and located within 200 feet of an ag or residential district shall include varying roof lines, blah, blah, blah. Okay, doesn't that contradict section B, 3,
You're,
where it
You're-
says 300 feet. 3B, no data, section B, 3B, no data center shall be located less than 200 feet. Okay, am I reading that wrong?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding where you are.
Okay.
Subsection C,
Subsection
C.
C, under architecture.
Okay, subsection 5, yeah.
Okay, letter C, within 200 feet, located within 200 feet of an ag residential district.
Okay.
But then back on page 3, section B, number 3, no data center building shall be located less than 200 feet. So how is it, am I reading that wrong? Data center located within 200 feet. But in the beginning, it says they shall not be less than 200 feet.
You said the data center building itself versus the components for the cooling, and is that what you're reading on here for B, section 3, section E? Is that 300 feet you're referring to?
I think,
Okay, yes, I have this question mark. It doesn't, and located within 200 feet of an ag residential district. Okay, but I thought in B, we said it can't be within. I don't know, it just seems like it's contradicting. What?
That's, it says equipment for cooling, ventilating, or operating with generators. Are you talking about the 3E?
No, 3B, up 3.
3B on page 3 versus 5A, excuse me, versus
5C.
5C on page 5.
They both say 200 feet.
It just sounded like this one back here was saying it was gonna be closer to.
Yeah, actually, I think you have a point, because reading 5C, it suggests that you can be less than 200 feet from an ag or residential district.
And you can't be, according to the.
Right, and according to the prior
Yeah,
provision. You're
okay, so I'm not reading that wrong now.
No, it needs to be corrected. Okay. Will be taken care of.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. I have one. Item 6 on page 5. About a third down, generator use. That should be deleted because we address it on the preceding page under number 4. I realized that as I was,
I guess before we move on from this and or whatever, my thoughts on the water disposal and having more oversight on that, just so we have it versus, I mean, state's got all sorts of laws, doesn't mean people follow them. We're
Well,
probably into it.
I agree with you on that, and I think that's important on that. We should have included in that.
will be done.
Thank you.
So who enforces or who makes sure that they're following, if it ever happened, how are they held accountable to following the rules? Is it Ann, or is it the state, or?
Well, it first comes with the township. Ultimately, it would be a state regulation, state or federal regulation that the less than honest individual or company is toyed with. If it is a violation of a state reg, then I would say your course of action is get a hold of the state and talk to them. I am envisioning, though, writing, in revising the amendments, possibly including a provision that requires, before any scrubbing is done, that the township clerk be notified when and where, and that a township zoning, I was going to say township representative, but zoning administrator fits that well, and that a township representative shall be present, or another duly qualified individual to take pictures, film, and have a record of what was happening, so that if there appears wrongdoing, we hope there's evidence that we can show. But it's a very good point. To a certain extent, you folks have many, many households that most likely all operate appropriately in terms of environmental issues and common sense. Unless your community is unique, there are probably some households or properties that have had stuff poured on or put on that should not have happened, was not sanctioned, and it can be very challenging trying to maintain awareness of what's happening and what's not appropriate and what is appropriate. Unfortunately. Yes, ma'am.
So, with the same topic, water, but backing up, do we need to say something? Obviously, they're gonna have to have a well, because we don't have city water. Should something be mentioned in here? And what happens to everyone around it? Are our wells all gonna go dry because they're taking so much water? I don't
Or if
know.
they're gonna tap into our water table, should they be required to pay for water testings in the nearby homes or all the homes?
But is
before and after?
this where we need to have something?
Well, it's,
I-
for a closed system.
But they still need water.
They're gonna need some water.
They're gonna take.
They will need a source of water
Yes,
Whether that
for
be
the, to fill it,
correct,
sort of, and anytime they then scrub.
correct. But do we need to mention something in water in here?
Well, I think that the aquifers are a major issue for those things. If
You already experienced issues as
yeah, and when Bourbons irrigate, our water is down, and it happens all the time. And there's a couple 600-foot wells right out by us, and when those wells are drawing water out of everybody else's water, it's done. Very concerned for the township. If there is a draw, a deep draw on the water, and you can't do a complete closed loop, and I understand that doesn't mean that they're not going to be drawing periodically. It'll help some of that, they won't be doing it all the time, but I'd love some protection and testing and well testing or whatever to make sure that we don't lose our pressure here.
We have a provision in the draft amendments, B4 on page 5, and I'm summarizing, but submittal, so this is under special application requirements. Submittal of a water conservation plan demonstrating that water usage will not noticeably alter local water supply, including groundwater resources. The plan shall specifically demonstrate vulnerability of the project to water scarcity and drought, anticipated disturbance to current public water service, may not apply here, or private potable water wells. Description of effective water conservation programs, and goes on to require one or two additional items. So the issue is being raised, but what is not here is if the applicant submits a water conservation plan that looks beautiful, and then 1 year in, the plan isn't worth the paper that it was printed on because people's wells are wrong. We can add a provision that I'm not quite sure what it would say, but it would establish more clear responsibility that the continued operation of the data center is contingent on the absence of lack of water pressure in local potable wells until the situation is corrected. So it's basically saying you may have a beautiful plan, but if we find that the local wells are being unreasonably impacted, it starts to give you folks the authority to have the zoning administrator issue a temporary work stop until the matter is corrected, or cite them for a violation and require that the matter be addressed before continuing on, or within 60 days, whatever may be the case. And I will add, with your approval, I will add something along those lines. It won't be under D4, because D4 is specific to application requirements. What we're now talking about, if someone put together an inaccurate conservation plan, and now we're taking enforcement action to stop. So I'm not sure where it will go right offhand, but it will go in the appropriate place. And when I send this back to you folks, as I have done in the past regarding amendments, I will highlight in the cover letter where revisions were made, and including that specific item.
Yep, that's good.
We forgot the hours of operation. Well, we started that out at 5 p.m. Did you get that too, Mark, the hours of operation? Instead of 9 p.m., P5? With the decibel readings?
What page are we on?
Oh, back up here, this would be page 4 of 6, section C, 2, and there'd be 1 and 2 on the.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I've got it down as 55 and 45.
And then hours of operation. Instead of 9 p.m. being 5 p.m.
So 7 to 5, and then 5 to 7.
Yes.
Okay?
This, the amendments will come back
So I will send these back corrected, updated. It is possible that you are not happy with the way I revised something. And depending upon what community I'm in, they'll say, hey, you know, send it back to us. We want to look at it one more time and just make sure there's nothing else hanging out there before we then go to a public hearing. I have clients that say, yep, if there's a problem with how I revise it, we'll change it following the public hearing, assuming it's not a substantive change, just tweaking something. You folks have the authority to have a hearing, and before you recommend adoption to the board, you have the authority to recommend changes. And so if you are not happy with how I address something, there is a recourse to that. I'm bringing it to your attention just so you know, see if how you want to.
And we're gonna look at it, and then if we have some more changes,
Okay.
no one's gonna hold anything back on this. We
Okay.
need to be very spot on with it. And if we see something else that needs to be put on, that's fine.
Okay.
After the public hearing, we may have some requests to add some stuff to it.
Sure.
So that's what we're hoping.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So if we do, hypothetically, we do have something after the public hearing, we're going to another public hearing.
Depends on subsection. There's
How is that?
There's some nuances to that. Okay. Are we good with that subject? You guys
Yes.
good with that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next one. Under new business still, purchasing development rights from property owners. Mark is also here to discuss some options for us for looking at or developing a potential ordinance that would assist the township. I'm going to turn it over to you again.
Okay. This correspondence, this is dated August 5th, is kind of general in nature. It's almost like a primer. But before I start, I just want to clarify something. There are two phrases. Whenever you talk purchase of development rights, you may also have folks talking about the transfer of development rights. And they're two very different things. And I want to make sure that we're all clear that we're talking about purchase of development rights, not transfer of development rights. Transfer of development rights would be something along the lines of, and I'm making this really simple. Pretend your northwest corner of the township is planned for growth. It's not, but let's just pretend. And the southwest corner is planned for ag and low-density residential. There could, by zoning the farmland, you have zoning 2 acres. But for some communities, they require a larger acreage. For better or worse, could be 5, could be 10 acres, could be 20. Some townships have developed programs called transfer development rights, where if I'm a farmer in the Southwest, there is a formula in the zoning ordinance that says, if I care to, and I have 20 acres, let's say that is worth 3 development rights. Through working with the township and the zoning ordinance, I, in the Southwest, could go into a private agreement with a landowner in the Northwest, which is planned for growth, and I can sell that landowner in the growth area my development rights. And I would send them over here, and now this developer, instead of making up numbers, instead of being able to put 20 units on his acreage, maybe now he can put 25. And in return for what that farmer transferred, an easement is put on their property, prohibiting any future residential development. So one person is selling, but essentially transferring their development rights from a preservation zone to a growth zone. That's transfer of development rights. What we are talking about is the township or other entity voluntarily, by the landowner, offering property rights up for sale, which when the township then purchases those or acquires them, generally speaking, that property from which they came cannot be developed. The landowner, the farmer, receives some sort of income because he or she just sold those development rights to the township. And now the township owns them. So that's, what we're talking about is outright purchase, not transferring from one part of the township to another. I have on the first half of the of page 1 of my correspondence, numbers 1 through 4, I would say is the backbone of a typical PDR, purchase of development rights ordinance. I have included the actual wording of the 3 sections of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act that addresses PDRs, which is section 507, 508, 509. 507 essentially addresses the establishment and adoption of an ordinance to authorize the purchase and any limitations that may apply. Section 508 of the Zoning Enabling Act addresses additional aspects of the creation and operation of a PDR program. A lot of it pertains to counties because more often than not, it is a, from my experience, it is a county entity that more often pursues a purchase of development rights program than a individual township. I'm not saying that individual townships haven't done it. One of the most successful is, as you may know, is Peninsula Township north of Traverse City, which I believe they were the first in a stronger effort to protect their farmland and orchards that were just turning into homes. They established the program and it's been very successful. I suspect it's done at the county level more often because there may be a greater ability to generate funds because it's a bigger entity versus the township. But townships have done it without question. Section 509 talks about how the PDR program can be financed and various requirements regarding setting the system up to make the purchase to make PDR work specific to the township. What monetary funds does the township need to create? Because there are various transactions that may be going on. There may be a purchase of development rights. There may not always be a purchase. There may be a contribution from a landowner, which may require a different kind of fund communities will levy a tax, and that can end up needing to be a different fund because there are different state or county or township rules that come into play. Much of this wouldn't necessarily find its way into the ordinance. It is how you folks administer sort of behind the scenes the successful implementation of the program. I summarized starting on page 4, what I have found to be the primary sections of a PDR ordinance. And not just primary, it's pretty comprehensive. If you look at 5 PDR ordinances, there's a really good chance there's going to be similarity between them. And all of these items that are listed on page 4 and it goes on to page 5 are typically addressed in one form or another. Very briefly, you've got a introductory section addressing why you're adopting this ordinance, what's your goal, are you here, is this ordinance intended to protect farmland, period, or is it intended to protect farmland as well as natural open spaces that may include wetlands or hardwoods or any woodlands? Purchase and development rights need not be specific to farmland. Some communities may only apply it to farmland. From my experience, communities don't limit it just to farmland. But that's something you folks can decide. Like any ordinance, you need definitions. So there would be a definition section. I'm skipping some of these because they're just so straightforward. Fourth one, unfortunately I didn't number these, but the one that says retained residential development rights. A lot of PDR ordinances will, by example, if I were to own 40 acres and I'm prepared to sell the development rights to the township, and I've got 40 square, but I want to save the northeast 5 acres for potentially 2 dwellings, so 2.5 acre lots. Most communities, my experience, have a provision like that. It's sort of a flexibility issue, and it's usually not many. When we say retain development rights, we're not talking about lots of development rights. We're talking about giving someone the opportunity to have an easement placed on the entire property, but have an exclusion for 1 or 2 lots, by example, whether they want to have it for a family member or maybe cash. So that's what retained residential development rights are. Eligible lands and priority of acquisition, I already mentioned that some communities only want to buy farmland property rights. Some communities open it up to a much wider sort of environmental protection effort. But whatever is being considered eligible, this part of an ordinance would also address how properties are scored to determine if in year 2027, and you have a deadline by when you have to get PDR applications in. And so come January 15th, 2027, which is the, making this up, cutoff date, you've got 10 applications. Then, if you go to the next portion, then the selection committee comes in that is typically different from the planning commission or township board or ZBA. and based on a system made part of the PDR ordinance, they evaluate those properties and determine which are most valuable, and typically put a priority on those. However, there could be a low priority on one of those parcels, but it's not requiring any tax money to get that property. So if I was gifting my 40-acre development rights, even though it's low thought, just
Desirability?
yes, thank you. Even if it is low desirability, if it's not costing the township anything to acquire it, why not? The more that it is taxes, levy tax, becomes, it's just an important factor in it, because township can save tax money by using other vehicles to acquire property. It's generally considered illegal. Selection committee is a committee that you folks would establish, who is going to go through the ranking of the applications and make recommendations. With everything, you've got monitoring and enforcement, duration of acquired interest. The PDR ordinance has to specify when the township buys anyone's development rights, for how long have my development rights been purchased? And typically, it's in perpetuity. Once they're purchased, that's it. Usually, there's a provision in the ordinance that just puts that out as clear as day, so there is no confusion by the public, by the general public, and those who want to enter into the program. This is, unless you take a very unique step in a different direction, this is forever. It's in perpetuity. There are a couple other sections that of a PDR ordinance that will identify the process to be followed. I'm sorry, let me back up. If you buy my purchase and development rights, then an easement is put over my property, and I'm happy. But 2 years down the road, for some reason, I may want to try. I would like to change the easement in some way, either the wording or the boundary. Most PDR ordinances have an option to amend a conservation easement. But it's not something that is frequent. It's just putting it out there that it can be, whether it's an emergency situation, just whatever the future may bring that no one anticipated. I talked about transfer development rights. So the one at the top of page 5 is a typically a very brief section that says you cannot transfer development rights. This is not what the ordinance is about. I mentioned about the possible need to establish a number of funds in the township, or the treasurer's office, or whatever the case may be. So under supplemental funds, that's what that is addressing. I had mentioned the last item here, purchase of development rights funds. And I'm being repetitive here. I had mentioned that if you adopt a PDR ordinance, there are going to potentially be a number of sources of revenue, and they get addressed differently by state law or by township practice, and this sort of section of the PDR ordinance clarifies. That is kind of the bare bones of what a PDR is about. Yes?
Okay, so if you have 40 acres, we'll use your 40 acres. Okay, let's say 2 miles down the road you have 60 acres. Can you pick and choose whichever one you want to do, or is it all in or all out?
Well, if it's, no, it's not all in. I could own 8 40-acre tracts throughout the township, and I'm only interested in selling my development rights on one.
What if they adjoin each other? Say you have 100
It's
acres.
a different, unless you include both in the conservation easement, it doesn't apply to both. So there would typically, I have never seen anything in a PDR ordinance that requires someone, if they want their 40 acres to converted PDR-wise, that I've never seen anything that says if you abut another property you own, you have to include that property as well. No.
Okay.
We're not trying to push.
Can you split your 40 and say I only want to do 20?
Sure, you could. Yes, you could. It may drop you in your selection process, but that's a personal decision that you make.
Question? Are you done, Sherri?
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's say hypothetically, it goes great, we get big support, we get millage, we get funding, federal, state, and we got money coming in, and say we hit a stagnant period or whatever, and have you ever seen a cap on, like, okay, once we get to X amount of dollars, then the stop, say, if there's millage, would you have like a stop collect until it goes back down and then recollect up to a certain cap versus maybe no one sells development rights for 20 years and we've collected 20 years of millage taxes on it and we're sitting with a whole lot of money we can't, buy a development right?
Sure.
No one wants to get rid of their money if they can't, do something productive with it.
From my experience, that isn't so much spelled out in the ordinance as it is policy of the township board.
So it'd be at a different level.
Yeah.
Decision, okay. But I mean, that's not absurd to have a thought like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so what's the order? Like, okay, we get an ordinance, it passes. Okay, if we do a millage, do we take in applications before we have a vote for a millage? What if we don't have any applications? It's sort of like what Matt said, but we already passed a millage, so yeah, we got all this money. Like, what's the order that it goes? You know, I understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, the ordinance has to get passed.
Right, that's the
First,
first thing.
that's first.
Right,
Second, there are some municipalities that pass the ordinance and never levy a tax, either because they're getting money somehow, somewhere else, whether it's gifts that are being donated, whether it's just charitable contributions, contributions made by state or county entities, depending upon where you are. So some never establish a tax. I believe without the tax, unless there's generosity going on, abundant generosity going on, I think it's going to be hard not to generate. Without a tax, I think it may be challenging to establish, to grow funds where you can have a substantive impact on purchasing development rights. But And you could adopt the ordinance, and the town, any township, could pursue a tax levy as part of the PDR program. And if there's fantastic support from the community, that suggests one thing. If there isn't a lot of support, it might, you know, those are big decisions that the township board has to wrestle.
So I decide to put my property in this program. The amount that I receive is figured out
In a formula.
by some formula, correct? Is that a one-time payment I receive, or is that every year?
It's typically a one-time payment. It's
Okay.
not typically a one-time.
One time.
That's what I'm most familiar with.
Okay. I continue to own the property.
Yes, yep.
Who pays the taxes on the property?
You would pay the taxes on the property, recognizing it's under an easement and cannot be developed.
So does that change my tax base if it cannot be developed? It's like a locked-in,
I don't want to speak for the assessor or, you know, either at township level or county level. I don't know. I have,
so what?
unrelated to PDR, I have seen varying approaches among counties regarding taxation and practices.
So what would be the benefit for me to do that?
Because, well, the premise is, I'm making up numbers here, I'm not a farmer, so I'm making up really simple numbers. Let's say I have 40 acres. If I sell it as for residential development, maybe I can get 15 dwellings on the property. If they're 2 acres each and, you know, sewer. In theory, if there's a demand for homes, that's going to provide you with a certain amount of money. Let's say you sell, you generate X amount of money. And let's say, easy numbers, you acquired $1 million through that process. Let's say if you farmed the land and never developed it for the life of the land, so to speak, maybe you make $500,000. So you lost that. So you're losing out. Strictly from a financial standpoint, you're losing out on $500,000 by staying in farming and not developing. But we don't want you, rather you not develop. I mean, that's what PDR is all about.
Right.
So we will, making it sound really lovely, okay? We will give you or buy from you your development rights. We're not going to buy it. We may not buy $500,000 worth, but we might buy $300,000 worth. That might be enough between the $300,000 that you're going to receive, along with the $500,000 that you're still going to be able to generate yearly through farming, that you end up saving farmland with that and financially benefit.
So you can still use the resources of the property as far as
Yeah,
farm,
with it-
want a TSI timber stand approval.
Within the constraints of the easement, which you would never go into unless you were comfortable with those easement provisions. It gives you, likely you won't get the development value but you're gonna get more value than you will if you continue to only farm. So it allows you to continue to farm, and because the development rights were bought, you end up with maybe a windfall that is appealing enough to your household or to you that it's something you want to seriously pursue.
So you're selling development rights at my expense, because my taxes are going to probably go up. So, I mean, everybody else's expense.
You mean your taxes will go up in order to fund the PDR?
Yes,
Well,
isn't that true?
well, absolutely. If the township levies a tax, yes,
Yeah.
that's how things work. And that's why, depending upon the community, there may be wide support for that kind of program, or there may not be.
Essentially
Okay.
though, Sherri, you and Patty, say you both each have a farm, Patty sells her development rights, you're both paying that millage. It's gonna be on every property, we can't pick and choose what that millage is on.
Right.
And it's only on the development rights, so as an assessor, I don't foresee taxes changing, because you're tilling, Patty's tilling, I'm gonna look at that as tillable land. Just because you can't build a house on it, doesn't mean it doesn't get taxed. We have to look at the current use of the property. So if you're both farming, I'm still gonna tax that as agricultural.
So what is the advantage? Like, okay, farmers can go to the FSA office and sign up for conservation or whatever kind of programs, and still own their land, still own their development rights. So what, I mean, probably wouldn't be as financially as much through the FSA office, but why would they want to sell their development? This is what I don't understand. Why would they want to sell their development rights when there's other opportunities?
If you compare it to other opportunities, depending upon the particular, PDR ordinance and the tax being levied and so forth, yeah, maybe other options may look more interesting. Maybe not. But it does establish the vehicle for those who may be interested to continue to farm, but also get more money for it.
That's good. I think we need a draft ordinance on this. Mark is
Something I can do.
prepared to do that
I am
for
prepared
us.
to do that.
I think that would be the next step, to take a look at that for the planning commission, and then have a document to pass along to the board and make some kind of recommendation.
Sure. And if I can just say, because we've got two things going. You all know I submitted a letter that I'd be retiring on December 31st, but that same letter also said that anything I'm involved with you folks at that time, if it's not completed, I'm not going anywhere unless you send me somewhere. So it's just I'm assuring you that if we get to December and you're still happy with me and we haven't finished this yet, I'm prepared to do it to the end.
Thank you.
Joyfully, I would say.
No, I think this, at this point, we should look at the draft ordinance
Sure.
for this thing, and get moving on to do that.
I am going to, with planning commission's approval, I'm going to put the data center as the priority thing I want to work on, and
Yes.
PDR to follow.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys good with that? I'm good with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you for that, Mark, and bearing with us. I'd like to move on to unfinished business. I have a couple of items. One, with Williams and Works. What we need to do just a couple of us that want to go through all the protocol that they're going to go through in this whole process so that we can look at what it looks like. I want to get a timeline from them, get this thing rolling is what I want to get, and they want to do a kickoff meeting. No, but ASAP, they've given me some open dates for next week and the week after. So what I'll do is I'm going to reach out to you guys and see who wants to do it. I'm happy going to that meeting. I don't know if all of us should go to it or we can have 3 or more. I don't know how that would work for.
You'd have to advertise it for open meeting that.
Yeah, and I don't really want to do that. This is more of just a preliminary kickoff. So we all got a nice outline of what they're doing. And I don't think it would take more than, so it's kind of like a mini committee we're setting up to meet with them, go over the whole process that they're going to do. So volunteers or anybody?
I'm going to talk some more on the board side to see if, being the liaison or whatever, I kind of eliminate it to where it's only can be 3 people versus 4 people, because I create a quorum on both sides if I'm involved with 2 township people, 2 planning.
No, I can meet them next week.
What's that?
I can meet them next week and get this thing kicked off. I'd like to have someone else with me.
I can go.
You want to do it, Patty?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
When I meet,
Well, she's got some open days. I'm going to go back. It's given us 3 or 4 days next week, and she had it set last week, but
in the evening,
that's going to be during the day sometime. I don't know. If you want to be involved, that's awesome, and we can adjust it. I'm sure they can adjust it whatever your time is.
Are they coming here, we're going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, they'll probably just come here for an informal meeting. It's not going to be a open meeting. They'll meet us up at the office this year, and then we'll go over our process.
Okay.
So, is there a better time for you to attend? If you want to set something, afternoon or morning's better? Or?
I would not be available Thursday, or I would not be available Monday through Wednesday.
Well, again, if you do
Thursday,
3
Friday.
of you, you're gonna have to have an open meeting.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So you guys need to pick 2 of you.
Okay, go ahead, Patty.
Really, 3? I thought it was 3 as a
It's
quorum.
3. So Patty and I, and then if, I guess we can do it. Let's set it
Do
up
it.
next week.
So we're not going to worry about anyone on the township side?
No, at the same, we'll pass on the process. It's just a process we're talking about. Try to get an ETA of it. And so the final unfinished business, we have a draft moratorium. It's an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance regarding moratoriums. And we had asked them for Mark to take a quick peek at it and see if we can move this thing along. I've read it. Mark, do you have anything to add to this?
No. As I've mentioned earlier, at least to somebody, I'm not an attorney. I know zoning, but moratoriums, there's nothing that jumped out at me in what, Al, what you had provided. You provided me a copy of the ordinance. I was a little confused because it wasn't specific to data centers, but I now have learned that a moratorium is already in place regarding data centers, and this is really an ordinance that more clearly expresses the authority the township has to adopt moratoriums. Your legal counsel recommends it. I'm not going to question that, and it's good to me.
And this would allow the township then to create a moratorium on further items that come up without having to go back through any kind of a new ordinance.
Yep.
Basically is my understanding of it. Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
Mark, is it your understanding that this is a general ordinance as a police ordinance? Or should this be put in the format of our actual zoning ordinance? Because I was given the impression that this should go into regular zoning, even though it looks like a general ordinance, the way it's typed right now.
I don't know.
Okay.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Yes, this goes into the zoning.
Okay.
So this would need to be retyped to look like our zoning ordinance. Then.
Yeah, so.
So it fits?
Yeah, this format.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to generate, truly I'm not trying to generate more work. If you have the Word file for that moratorium ordinance, I can generate that
Make it look pretty.
and put it in the form it needs to be. And so I assume it needs to go to a public hearing. And yes, I can help you with that if you.
I would love to be helped.
Do you have that?
We want to move this one on. I think this is something we need to do anyways in the township.
Okay.
All right. Any more comments on that? Questions? Township Board Report.
Okay, so the Township Board adopted a code of ethical conduct policy. I texted you to over a copy of that, I emailed you over a copy. In short, my opinion and some others' opinions is basically an extension of our oath with a signature behind it, saying that we're not going to do anything shady, take cutbacks into the table, make choices to benefit friends, family, or immediate, connections. Go through it, it's pretty simple, it's well written out, understandable. I don't see anything absurd with it, but I see it being passed along down the line to the PC members as well. Sadly, Treasurer Bonnville submitted her letter of resignation for August 31st, and she had recommended Katie Davis, her deputy clerk, to fill her position. Katie's been taking classes on her own dime and getting certifications from my understanding, and has worked along with Amanda for how many years now? So she's pretty familiar with the position. The Township Board of the Iosco Church, and with that being said, the fourth point on here is with the Williams Master Plan. We would think it would be a good idea to add in a question somewhere in there pertaining to ideas of what the community might want to see done with that property, but respectfully, and I would imagine people would understand this, limited it to X amount of characteristics. If they want to elaborate on their idea, we would highly encourage them to come to a meeting and elaborate on it, but I don't think it's right to pass that responsibility of reading essays on the Williams and Works to organize for us and put in, especially when they've already kind of given us a price with what services they're going to give. So I figured adding just that little bit of a question in there for 25, 50 characteristics of ideas for the church, and then, like I said, if you want to elaborate, attend the meeting, please. That's it. That's all I got.
What's on your mind for that building?
I mean, if we're asking for my ideas, the first thing that pops to mind, I'd love to see some sort of a work co-op for the schools in the area to have somewhere to go and learn skilled trades for plumbing, electrical, heating, cooling, the things that we don't have enough bodies to go into industries to do. And AI is taking a lot of jobs probably in the future as far as computer science jobs, and blue collar needs a lot more workforce in the field. So that's just kind of, there's so many different ideas, and some of them might not stick to the wall, some might be good. It's just going to be kind of a walk around talk and see what people think and what's applicable for it. What's your ideas?
Well, I gotta see the building. I told you I'd walk through that thing with you guys.
Good thoughts on that, the master plan question as far as a short little, explaining about the church and what are the thoughts to, necessary is for residents to be included in their thoughts, so it's a pretty big purchase.
Yeah, I would say.
As well as it's, for potential voting poll locations, if something is to happen in the next few years with the Masson Rd Bible Church, the little country churches they're fading out, and, we potentially could do it here, but it'd be a little bit chaos for having everything all done right here. So it opens the door to have another place and then options to do things in the future in the community. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Zoning administrator report.
I have issued 18 permits over the year. 3 of those 18 permits are for new dwellings. And then in addition to those 18 permits, I've issued 17 waivers. ZBA did have a meeting on July 29th for a reduction in the side setback for an accessory structure, and it was passed. Their next meeting is August 26th.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's do the second call to the public. Do we have any comments before we close the meeting now? Going once, and
I have a question regarding the proposed data center ordinance. And has Mr. Eidelson written those ordinances for another township that's similar that we could take a look at?
Can I?
yeah, go ahead.
I have written purchase of development rights ordinances.
Yeah, I was.
No, I understand. I'm just being honest with you.
Okay.
I have seen and worked with numerous PDR ordinances. This would be the first one I am actually drafting, which might concern some, but if you were to research the PDR ordinances, they can be complicated, but they're also fairly straightforward and not a whole lot of variation among those that are out there.
My question was related to the data center one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, the data center.
Data center, yes, I have written amendment. I only work with rural communities, so I have written them several for other communities, yes.
Is there any that's been published? Adopted?
I've got a number that are being worked on. I'm working with Deerfield Town, well, that's Livingston County. I'm working with several. We're heading to public hearings, but nothing that's been officially adopted.
The other reason I was questioning, there is an MTA training, a workshop that's actually coming up this month, and it's related to renewable energy, data center, and short-term rentals, some other enforcing ordinances. And it may be of some help to you. I believe the date is August 18th. And the rate is, because it's late now, it's $150 per person. But it may allow you to be able to work with the planner and ask questions. So I do know that they were bringing in an attorney to help the townships. So I just thought I would bring that up. So it's from the MTA workshop. And if you want, I have an application I can forward.
And I fully support what Amanda said, and those of you who have been in front of me before, I've said many times, don't accept it just because the consultant put it in front of you. And I know none of you do that. So the more education you have, the better.
I do know that workshop, they are bringing legal counsel for you guys and to advise you, so, for townships.
Okay, any other comments? And, next meeting is gonna be September 8th, right here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36.
Second?
I'll second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much today. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, nice to see you.
Great job.